So let us have this little talk on our great heroes, the North American martyrs, Canadian martyrs. We call them Canadians because they all came through Canada, and 3 of them died in the US, but on a short trip. Anyway, they were essentially in Canada, all of them, all 8. There's 8 of them. We should know their names. You know Saint John de Brébeuf, you know Saint Isaac Jogues. But there's the others we need to know too. They died for you. Somebody died for you. Way back in the 1640s. Charles Garnier, Gabriel Lallemand, he had a brother who was a priest as well. Noël Chabanel, Antoine Daniel. So there are five priests of the Jesuits. They died in Huronia, all 5 of them. 3 others died in the US, in Aurysville, which is today Aurysville, Ossernenon, was called in these days, the Mohawk name. René Goupil, Isaac Jogues, Saint John de Lalande. And those on the right side, those in Aurysville, actually they're in order of their death. Okay, so 8 great men. Others have suffered also. There's a number of Jesuit priests who are not canonized, who are certainly canonizable. There's some laymen. There's a Father Bressani, who was tortured by the Indians. There's a Father Anne de Noé. He died frozen in the snow on his way to 3 Rivers. Father Ragnaud was one of the superior. He was tortured. Father Chaumonot almost died. Great apostle of Our Lady. He's the one who founded Sainte Foy in Quebec. You have... I'm sorry I have to mention it, but we'll talk about it a little bit more in a moment. But you also have one who's called Guillaume Couture, William Couture, who is my ancestor, direct ancestor, 11th generation. He was tortured with Saint Isaac Jogues, had his finger bitten off and tortured horribly. He survived, and later on he got married. Thank God he got married, and I would not be here today, So anyway, there's quite a number of them. Perhaps in another talk we could talk about some of these great men who have left their names in the history of that 17th century. So Huronia, we will look at a map shortly. Huronia is north of Toronto, Midlands, Orillia, that area, Barrie to Midland, that area. 8 of them, I cannot say too much about each one. The greatest is no doubt Saint John de Brébeuf and Saint Isaac Jogues. They're the 2 greatest, the most famous. And before we actually go into their lives, let's look at the timeline. The timeline from what we have seen so far, okay? So we have seen in the previous talks, I know it's a little bit small, but our cameraman's going to zoom in a little bit. We have seen, in the first talk we saw Jacques Cartier, who came in 1534. We saw Champlain, who arrived founded Quebec in 1608. And he came to Ontario with the Father Le Caron, 1615. So he said the first Mass there in Carogua, west of Midlands, 1615. There's a monument there. We saw that one. We saw 1629 to 1632, the British, actually 1629, the British took over Quebec and brought all the pioneers, even the priests, back to England. When they got to England, they were told, sorry, we lost to the French. You have to give them to the French. So, but everybody went back to France. Among them was St. John Brebeuf, the other Jesuit that were there. They came back in 1633. Champlain died on Christmas 1635. We saw 2 talks ago, Marie de l'Incarnation, that's Saint Mary of the Incarnation. So she came in 1639. And we saw last time the foundation of Montreal, 1642. That's when Maisonneuve arrived, Jeanne Mance, the first Mass on the island, remember, with the fireflies on the altar. Okay, so we have seen these things. Our history of the 17th century is going to overlap in many ways. You have to understand that. We're looking at it. My goal was, or is, not to give you a thorough history. There's no time for it, and I don't have the knowledge of it. But I would like to highlight some of the great figures, some of the great men and women who have brought the faith, who brought civilization, who brought schools, who brought hospitals, who brought fire to this land of snow and ice. Okay. So, today we will focus on the 8 Canadian martyrs. And we have them here. We have them here. Okay. Well, you will get to know this, all those who are on this image. The one in the center is Saint John of Brebeuf. Okay, this one here. This is Saint Isaac Jogues. And the others will appear as we go on in our history. This was the, if I'm not mistaken, the image that was used for their canonization. In St. Peter, when someone is canonized, they have this massive painting in the facade of St. Peter at the Vatican. And so they had this painting made. So let us look at them one by one.